All right, hello. I am Kyle Ryan from the AV Club, and you are here with NOFX. The AV Club, The Onion, all of it. NOFX, 30 years of fucking up to celebrate the upcoming release of their book, The Hepatitis, Bathtub, and Other Stories. Coming out next month, April 16th, I believe.
I don't know.
This is the second cover for it, right? There was a different cover you guys had originally planned, wasn't it?
The first cover was just Dr. Seuss ripoff of us. And Dr. Seuss is very litigious, so it didn't work out.
Thing 1 and Thing 2 will come in and fuck you up. That's a cat in the hat joke, you guys. Who has kids? Come on. All right.
The Onion, everybody.
Hey. Check. So, I mean, let's just start talking about the book a little bit. I mean, why a book? Why now?
Well, after 33 years, we thought it'd be time for a book. And, people think of us as kind of a joke band, and our book is not what people expect. As you just said in there, you couldn't believe how dark the book is. Because it's a super dark book, and I thought people would be interested in it. What do you think, NOFX? You think rape, murder? See? No, not funny stuff. Why are you laughing? Why are you laughing? What is wrong with you?
Don't apologize.
And we're such an unconventional band, and every one of us is such an individual that there were stories to tell. We didn't get to where we are by doing the traditional route of starting, getting signed, all that kind of shit. So there's a lot of stories to tell.
A lot of stuff we didn't know about each other.
We have a very, very dark past.
Yeah, it's really funny.
I'm not talking about the color of my skin either.
Nobody thought that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not funny. When you read about Eric getting molested, it's really not that funny.
Hey.
Yeah, that's 10 pages into the book, you guys. So that's like one of those things where you're reading, like, hey, this is going to be fun. It's got a fun cover. And you're like, oh, wait.
Like this one time when we were all living in Santa Barbara, Eric's girlfriend got raped by his best friend. And he was this gnarly fucking dude. And she told me and Eric about it, but she said, don't tell Melvin, because Melvin will go after him, and then this skinhead is going to fucking kill Melvin. So we couldn't tell our friend Eric that his girlfriend was just raped by this gnarly dude. He didn't find out till the book.
Right. Not funny.
Not funny.
Sorry, but
No one's laughing now.
So I didn't find out till while we were writing this book. That was pretty heavy.
I had to call him and say, Melvin, because he got the copy, and I said, you should be prepared because this happened. You didn't know about it.
And there are a few instances of that, too, where you guys are like, oh, sorry you didn't know about this. Like, they're actually speaking to each other within the pages of the book of things that had gone unsaid. I think there was one...
Yeah, I stole some money.
Right.
$40.
Yeah. Give it back.
With interest.
Oh, fuck, that make $1,500.
Well, just to take a step back, I mean, how did it come together? You worked with Jeff Alulis on this, who did Backstage Passport with you guys, right?
Yeah, we worked with the guy who hadn't written a book before, but he had been around us filming Backstage Passport, our show, for years and years, so it seemed like kind of a good idea.
He did a great job, too.
So were you all just basically interviewed extensively, and then he compiled it? How did it work?
How many hours did we each do?
I mean, I probably did close to 30 hours of interviews over a 5-year period. And probably each one of us had the same amount of hours put into it.
Yeah, I had
mean, it was a
30 hours.
lot of notes that he had to take and a lot of stuff he had to filter through.
We were interviewed for, we talked into a tape recorder, and then he would ask us questions. And then he'd come back another day, he'd bring up the same topic and get things clear. And then he'd go to each band member and say, this is how Hefe remembers it, how do you remember it? And then we'd kind of, collaborate.
He fucked Courtney Love.
Yeah.
That's funny, because I did fuck Courtney Love, and as my wife was reading the book, as that chapter was coming up, I'm going like, how the fuck do I tell her this before she gets to it? And I didn't really say anything, and I watched her get to that page and just goes, she closed it, turned her back to me, and turned off the lights.
Oh, shit. You're in the doghouse.
They also shot up heroin together, so there's more to just...
Well,
Not me and my wife, me and Courtney.
Well, this is the thing. This is actually, I was talking about this. This is secretly your book, Smelly. Like, I've gone through it and like tabulated the number of pages that everybody has. You have 93.7 pages.
Smelly
roughly.
wins. It's his fucking book.
88 for Mike, and then both Hefe and Melvin are in the 40s. But it's like you talk a lot. Like this, a lot of what is in this book is your story because it goes all the way back to your kid, to being a kid, and I mean, all of you guys go back to your childhood, but also, you have a pretty extensive substance abuse story that goes through this that informs a lot of what comes after it. Were you expecting to go that deep into that story?
With the substance abuse that I've had and the other issues I've had in my life, I've dealt with it a lot in therapy and going through meetings and stuff like that. But coming to the book, it was a real way of like purging the damage that was inside of me, and it just kind of came out, and it was flowing of these wounds that I had, with my childhood, with my upbringing, with my father, with his childhood, and how that affected me up into the drugs and all that kind of stuff. So indirectly, it was very, very therapeutic for me, and it just spilt out,
What about you, Melvin? Because you talked like the stuff early in the book, the molestation stuff, is something you've never talked about before either, and that's a heavy thing to put out there. Like,
yeah, I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure I wanted to talk about it because there's a lot of shame, but I thought maybe it could help other people because it happens to a lot of children, and I didn't tell anybody for the longest time, and I thought that was, one of the hardest parts was what that did to my life was just keeping everything inside. I'm still dealing with that, and
it's really fucking brave what he's
seems
doing.
Like if more people knew that they could talk about it, then there'd be a little less damage.
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, it was a completely unexpected thing, and that's what's so interesting about this book is, again, like it's called the Hepatitis Bathtub, and there's a picture of like cartoons of everybody sitting in a bathtub looking fucked up, but this goes into places that you wouldn't expect. I've been describing it to people who are asking me about it, and I'm like, well, everybody knows The Dirt, the Mötley Crüe book, which is like each one of them talking about their shit, but like this is way darker than that book is, and goes into some really interesting things. Like there's this whole thing where Hefe almost could have gone to prison for 15, 20 years.
I almost did go to prison for 15 years.
Why don't we? You want to read your section of that?
We're gonna read one section.
This is his story about almost going to prison.
I guess I'll start here. I hatched a plan. I'm just fucking with you. All right. I hatched a plan. I would take the $5,000 I had left from selling speed and buy $25,000 in counterfeit bills. I would spread the cash around town, turn it into legit bills, and use the profits to pay off radio DJs to play our 7-inch. I was in a band before NOFX called Crystal Sphere, so that's what this chapter is about, my first band and my first attempt at music business.
It's a funk band, like funk, jazz,
It was kind of funk and
rock,
and I don't know, we were dropping a lot of acid back then. Well, let me just get back to reading. What could possibly go wrong? My cousin had a connection with a counterfeiter, and soon we had stacks of fake $20 bills filling the trunk of my car. We took the bills to liquor stores, used them to buy $1 lottery scratch-off tickets, and pocketed $19 in real currency. Plus, we had a chance to win extra money on the side. Seriously foolproof. We took short $3 cab rides around the city. This was in San Francisco, by the way. Paid with 20s, kept the change. I had a plan to drive down to Disneyland and spread the bills around the park. But we never made it out of the Bay Area. We stopped in Berkeley, and my cousin went to a flower shop while I went into Carl's Jr. and ordered a burger. I handed the kid behind the counter a $20 bill. He called his manager over. "We're gonna have to hold this." I said, "Why?" "Well, we need to call the police." So I played it cool, and I said, "Well, can I still order my food?" "Yeah, sure, go ahead." So I played dumb and put in my order. But the minute the manager's back was turned, I flew out of the door and I ran and caught up with my cousin. We need to get out of here now. Give me your coat. Should I stop there?
No, reload. The next part's the good part.
So we changed our look, switched coats and stuff, and I took the rubber band out of my hair and frizzed my hair and tried to change my look. We made it to the car without anyone following us, and my heart rate slowly returned to normal. As we were heading out of the city, my cousin asked to stop in People's Park to buy some weed. I protested, but he was stubborn. So we pulled over, walked up to some sketchy dude and requested some drugs. We handed him a 20. This ain't real money. Frustrated, we agreed to walk to his store, traded in for real cash, and return. As we walked away, two UC Berkeley campus police cars screeched to a halt right in front of us. Freeze! The dealer took off running. The campus cops grabbed me, and my cousin bolted down an alley. One of the cars went after him. I got cuffed and tossed into the other car. I said, "Excuse me, sir, what's going on?" He said, "Shut up, you're under arrest." "For what?" "For participating in buying and selling drugs." I didn't see my cousin get taken down, but he was running. He tossed all his counterfeit 20s under a car, with which the campus cops retrieved. They searched me and found counterfeit cash in my pocket as well. So they knew they were onto something bigger than just a pretty drug deal. They took us to the station, read us our rights, and dropped us in the separate holding cells. They interrogated us and kept asking where our car was. "I don't have a car here." "What are you talking about?" "We need to put a sticker on your car so it doesn't get towed." "We took the bus." It was easy to run them around. One guy played good cop, you know who drove a car, you know who parked it in here, come on, give us the info. I stonewalled him and then became bad cop. "What are you going to do next? Kill the president? Do you know how serious this is? You're going to do hard federal time." He kept repeating that phrase all night, hard federal time. Then back to good cop. I'm doing all I can to help you here. They dragged me back and forth between my cell and the interrogation room. With the cuffs squeezed on so tight they cut off my circulation. For round after round of questioning, they tangled my keys in front of my face, and after a while, they convinced me that my car really would be towed without a sticker. So I told them where it was, and they left me alone for a while. They searched the trunk and found 20 grand, $20,000, people, in leftover counterfeit cash, along with 3 bags of speed. Then the Secret Service showed up. Their routine was much more sophisticated. There wasn't any screaming of fake friendliness. Instead, they made me feel like I was sitting on a couch in a psychiatrist's office. I never answered any questions the same way twice. Made up fake stories about where we got the counterfeit bills, like, I found them in a garbage can. But of course, they didn't buy any of it for a second. They hounded me for hours. I was exhausted and hungry, and the campus cops and the Secret Service guys weren't too happy either. At one point, a new agent showed up and sat in the back corner of the interrogation room. He closed his eyes, rested his forehead on his fingertips of his right hand, as though he was in a state of deep concentration. The interrogation continued. "Tell me where you got it from. What's the guy's name?" I was too distracted by the guy in the corner to answer. "Don't look at him. Don't look at him. Look at me. Answer my question." Another guy leaned over to the agent in the corner and whispered, "Did you get anything?" "Nothing yet." Maybe it was the lack of food in my stomach or the lack of blood flow past my cupped wrist. Maybe it was the pressure or exhaustion finally getting to me. But I became convinced that the other guy was trying to scan my brain for info. Loop in my head. Every time an agent asked me something, I'd just stare at the guy in the corner and think to myself deliberately and distinctly, "Donald Duck, quack, quack, Donald Duck, quack, quack," trying to throw him off. After a while, the man in the corner threw up his hands and said, "That's it, it's over." The agent had a hushed discussion, and I overheard the corner man saying, "He knows what I'm doing." They asked him, "Did you get anything?" "All I got was a duck."
And
So there's a lot more to that, but it was a fucking creepy, creepy experience. I thought I was frying on acid, but I wasn't, and I swear the dude was like trying to get in my head, and I don't know what the Secret Service has, but that was fucking weird. It was
Because
creepy.
they had no right to go into the trunk, he got off.
And this is the thing about this book is that there's several instances through the 30 years it covers where none of you could theoretically have been here at this point.
Yeah.
You know, like because of near misses. I mean, you say in the book repeatedly that there are mole people moving magnets around you to keep you out of trouble, essentially. Because it seems like you've narrowly escaped so many things.
Yeah, so many things. You know, guns to the chest in foreign countries, crazy shit. So yeah, there's someone looking out for me anyway, or probably most of us.
Smelly almost got shot in Prague.
Yeah.
He had a gun pulled right in his chest.
And cocked.
And cocked. I remember that. I thought we were done.
Was that the soccer hooligans? Or was that a different story?
Different story.
Or you like lose track of all the times
Yeah,
they're being
different
chased and threatened?
I almost got thrown in a canal in
That's
in
right.
Amsterdam by some soccer hooligans.
He was mad that you tore his shirt.
He was mad I tore his shirt, yeah.
Yeah. These are all the types of stories you will see in the book. But I mean, as you were putting this together, I mean, aside from the stuff that you didn't know about each other, what other sort of surprises came from just like your talking about your own stories in this? Did it turn out differently from how you imagined?
I realized how much I hated my dad more and more the more I thought about all these things that happened, and how weird my mom was.
Yeah, your dad was a dick.
Yeah.
And that's something you've talked about a little bit with the Cokie the Clown performance you did here. Was anybody here for that? When was that? 6 years ago?
Yeah.
Was you told the story of going to his funeral at that, right?
Yeah. Well, it was one time when I was like 35, and my dad says to me, "Yeah, we didn't see each other much because I didn't want to see you when you were a kid." And I was like, "Oh." And he goes, "Yeah, your mom made me see you twice a month, but I didn't want to." And I was like, "Why did you say that to me now?" And then I thought of all the times that he lived in an adults-only apartment building, and he would just put me in the apartment, and he'd go out and smoke pot and drink, and I was just alone constantly in his house. And I was like, fuck. And I'm reliving all these things in the book. So that's why I have a new song. And it goes, "Fuck you, Paul Burkett. I'm glad that you were dead. You weren't a father or a parent, more an acquaintance than a friend." It's the beginning of it. It's kind of harsh.
Damn. That's all on Slim Shady.
You haven't heard that song yet.
No, you know what, but what's interesting is in the book, it also comes across weirdly as more sympathetic to your dad, or like empathetic to your dad than I think you would expect. Like, because you said like you kind of understood a little bit about why he was that way, even though like you obviously had a lot of.
Yeah, it was him. He had a lot of empathy. And
that was
No, but no, you turn around with your dad too. But I felt like you talked a little bit more about your dad with a little bit more nuance than that. But maybe I'm misreading it, or misinterpreting it. But your dad, yeah, like, I mean, you can talk a little bit about your relationship because you had a like kind of a distant relationship with your dad, and then it kind of turned around toward the end. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, my dad was, when I was a kid, he was really bad alcoholic, and all the shit that goes along with that. And I was always told that I was not worthy and put down and stupid and dumb. And
He'd tell us in front of us, too.
yeah, he just belittled me whenever he could. And so I had very low self-esteem and a lot of insecurities, which, goes really good with the genetic disposition of alcoholism when, I get introduced to drugs and alcohol. But as I grew older and I got sober and I started dealing with my stuff, I came to terms with my dad and just realized that he was doing the best he could because the situation he grew in was 1,000 times worse than I ever had. And he was just doing what he knew, and by me being able to figure out that he was doing what he knew, but he didn't try and fix the cycle, allowed me to try to fix a cycle with my kids. And now that my father's a grandfather, him and I are super, super close now. We weren't close until 7 years ago, And I mean, I was well into my 40s and, 42. We're super close, and I've healed on the inside and realized that a lot of my animosity from my childhood was actually steered towards my mother for not protecting me. And all this stuff kind of came up with like doing the book and, being in the program and stuff like that. But having my daughter now and my stepkids, seeing my dad act as a proper grandfather really, really put really soothed my soul and healed a lot of wounds. He's a great guy. He's a fucking great guy. And I'm so worried about him reading this book. I'm so worried because he's such a sensitive guy that I think it'll crush him. But I put it out there, but I really think it'll crush him.
You also said for the first time.
Yeah, he's never said I love you to me, ever. I've never heard it. He's never hugged me, and I've never said it to him. In the book, I tell him I love him, and I tell him I understand what his problems were, and I understand that he was trying the best he could.
Yeah, that's a really good thing that you mentioned. Is like, how have you, all of you, thought about like your families reading this?
Mine are dead. So.
Well, your parents are, but I mean, like, not even. But we also talked about like your kids, your daughter, seeing this and trying to keep her away from it. But or your
Yeah, I have a daughter and a son, and I feel terrible if once they get old enough, or my son gets old enough and reads this book, or my daughter gets her hands on it. I'm just like, oh shit, because there's a lot. All my dirt is in that book. I mean, I did a lot of stupid shit growing up, and I don't want my kids thinking they, oh, cool, dad did it, so I can. So at the end of my chapter, I say, like, please don't ever do this shit.
Mm-hmm. My daughter's gonna have it the worst, I think, because people are gonna go up to her and go, "Your dad's a piss drinker," and you can't get away from that.
Yeah, with me and my kids, I mean, I'm an open book. They know what's going on. My daughter has her own issues right now with substance. She's almost 19 years old, so I'm kind of dealing with it from a different perspective and a different angle. But my stepsons are like straight A students and and really athletic and stuff. But I'm an open book with my stuff. I'm not embarrassed of my past, and I'm not going to hide it. But I'm definitely not going to glorify it.
What about you, Melvin?
What about me? I don't know. It seems like compared to these guys, my childhood, except for one instance, was, my parents. My dad was an alcoholic. My mom, and dad were still married. It was almost a very, normal childhood. I was in the Boy Scouts.
Eagle Scouts.
Eagle Scout. Yeah, there was just not a lot of, communication, kind of a real quiet family. So I just talk about that a bit.
Right.
Having more, maybe more guidance. And now being a parent myself, I realize that I think about it a lot because, you don't want to just tell your kids everything all the time. You want to let them figure a lot of it out for themselves too. So I think about that sometimes. Maybe that was just my dad just waiting for me to figure everything out. Still waiting. But we're tight. We're cool. He's great. He will read a little bit about. I don't know what he's going to think when he reads the book. Might make him kind of sad. He might not have noticed that there was a disconnect.
What about the sexual abuse? Does he know about that?
Well, he didn't know about it till like my 30s or so.
Oh, okay. He knows.
So he knows. He'll know before he reads the book. He knows. Yeah.
There are funny tour stories also.
Yeah, we're overselling the darkness here, but it is like it's really substantive because there are lots of like funny stories to be told from your experiences for so long over the years. But these other things add a lot of shading to it. I think that makes it more impactful when you're reading it.
Yeah, it was like we had a lot of cutting loose to do once we got on the road as 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds. So a lot of beer drinking and breaking things and trashing people's houses and then going on to the next town.
Something, and I, just as a fan, like there was stuff that I learned a lot in this book. Like for instance, that the Moron Brothers was about Smelly and their friend DJ, who the song from Ribbed, where they go in all these things that the Moron Brothers do, like piss in your ice cube trays and tape your eyelids closed, put your legs in a cast, all based on real, actual events.
And then later he broke DJ's fingers with the pliers, or?
I wasn't there.
Oh, well, Jay Walker broke his fingers for stealing his snare.
For stealing.
Money.
And you were saying, was it true that people would call ahead to try to warn
Yes.
other people?
Yeah, me and DJ were so destructive in our partying ways. We just didn't give a fuck. And we thought it was all fun and games and stuff like that, but then people started calling ahead. You know, we would do these shows. We would call up a city and say, hey, we're in Des Moines, Iowa. You know, let's play someplace. And then someone would put us at a pizza parlor or their backyard or a house party, whatever it is. We'd play for beer money or for gas, whatever came first. And me and DJ would get fucking hammered and just wreck shit. I mean, absolutely wreck shit. And so then people started calling ahead, going like, hey, if NOFX is coming through town and they're playing your house or they're playing here, don't let them stay with you. Do not let. And people were getting forewarned about our shenanigans.
I mean, shenanigans. He'd go around spray painting every car in the neighborhood. You know.
Destroyed like a girl's like final student project. Was one. Kidnap Billy Joe and the van.
Yeah.
That was inadvertently. There's just
Through a barbecue through a big window. Let's throw a barbecue.
Yeah.
I remember one night Smelly and I got drunk, and we stayed at this girl's house who worked at the club. She was a bartender, and Smelly pissed on her cat. And then it happened to be raining outside or sprinkling or something. So when she got her cat, she was, oh, you've been out in the rain. It's pretty gross.
I used to, is this thing still on? Yeah. If I took a shit at someone's house, I would grab their pillowcase and wipe my ass with the inside of their pillowcase and then put a pillow back in neatly. So that when they were sleeping, they're going, what the fuck is that?
And there's just
Like, it was all fun and games. It was innocent.
that's just something that's like diabolical. That's not just like, hey, this is funny. That's premeditated, like really thorough terribleness.
It could have been worse. I could have been raping his girlfriend. Sorry.
We nailed some kid's clothes to the floor when he's passed out.
I don't remember that, maybe.
That was a good one.
Yeah, there's so much.
That's an awesome one.
There's so much shit that
Can't
I
get
did that I have no recollection of. That people tell me stories that I did. I mean, there was, you know, I did this until I was 27 years old. I have no fucking recollection of 3/4 of it. You know, I mean, and the stuff that I do remember is some stuff in the books.
Yeah. Was there stuff that you wanted to put in the book that didn't make it, that you couldn't?
Oh, there's one story that's so good that we can't tell.
Which one? Whose is it? Whose story?
Melvin's
The lawyer
story.
said no.
Oh yeah.
Ashley
Yeah,
Morgan.
there's stuff that we edited out just because it just doesn't need to be said. I mean, there's a lot of honesty and a lot of brutal stuff in here, but you know, we also have to keep somewhat of our integrity, you know, somewhat of our.
I think that's the only story we didn't tell, though.
I mean,
I just can't believe that I'm in a band with 3 other dudes that are just as fucked up. Like, we're so fucked up as kids, and we didn't know it. We didn't know that about each other.
No wonder we came together.
I just like the reference to like keeping integrity, but we're gonna shit in your pillowcase.
It's
Other than
DIY.
that, you know, like-
It's DIY ethic.
Got to draw a line in the sand somewhere. You know, it's funny. The book also goes into making some of the albums, but it really kind of stops around Ribbed when you were talking about how you're going into your own. I mean, you talk a little bit about Punk and Drublic and a little bit like how to the reaction to Heavy Petting Zoo, but after that, you don't really go into the records much. I was curious as to why that was.
Well, I don't know. I think this book it's interesting to our fans probably, but I think it's probably just as interesting and we wanted the book to be interesting to anybody. So if we keep talking about us and our records, it's not going to be interesting to the general public. That was my thought.
Yeah, things kind of changed for us around the time like White Trash came out and Ribbed, just because that's when we started touring in buses and not staying at people's houses. I mean, we'd still party and we'd still have a good time, but the dynamic changed a little bit too. We'd go to hotels, you know.
I mean, after 8 years of being in a band, we were still drawing 30 people in some places. And 8 years, that's a long time, and still had zero success. And that's when all the funny shit happened, you know? Once you're kind of successful, it's kind of boring. I mean, it's great for us, but it's not good for a book.
But it was also, I mean, as the show Backstage Passport showed, it's definitely not boring for you guys. I mean, there's putting yourself in. I don't know. Did you guys see that when it was on Fuse? It was a TV show about them touring around to sort of places they hadn't been before.
Yeah, but that we played a lot of sketchy places that we normally don't play. So there was a lot of shit happening, you know.
We did drugs in Singapore. Yeah.
Well, you did drugs.
No, so did Eric.
And Melvin.
We did.
But you had the crew had to sneak out of the one show. What was that in Peru?
Yeah.
Yeah. Peru cops to try to surround the venue and block the exits. So they got smuggled out in a truck, paid off a guy, and they did the guy's coke before they did smuggle out.
And then they showed up at your hotel the next morning.
Yep.
The kids did.
The fans did.
Yeah. And they played like an acoustic.
When we landed in Colombia, this has happened both times. In the airport, get our bags. Someone handed me a fucking bag of coke and pot. Here, welcome to Colombia. At the airport.
It's a tradition. But you guys have talked about like being in the the early stages of touring when it was more interesting. It's really interesting like for bands now, like looking at like how you guys did it. There's a picture in the book of an old cassette that they would send out to like promote their tour, and on the side of it said, "Touring Nation in summer, send any info, we will play your city." Like it's there's a level. I mean there's doing it yourself, and then there's like just gleefully going wherever, whenever. Like,
Yeah, we had no idea, and we didn't. Our first tour, we didn't have a record, so no one had ever heard us before.
Oh, what was it? We would, if you sent an envelope and your own cassette, we would record our demo onto your cassette and send it back to you.
Yeah, for free.
Yeah, that was really.
Did that work out?
Look at us now.
Look at us now.
Hey, look at you
And
now.
I used to book everything from a stolen credit card number. I'd go get a stolen credit card number, I'd work for a few days, and I'd spend 6 hours in a phone booth trying to book tours.
Yeah, we would tour. I mean, pre-cell phones, pre-pagers, pre-all that shit. We didn't have a booker, so we would have phone numbers. We would get a list of phone numbers of people in the cities, talk to them a couple days in advance, and then that day we'd roll in, find a payphone, and call them up and say, hey, we're here. Where do we go? And sometimes it worked out, sometimes it didn't. But that's the way we would tour back then, I mean, it was, for a bunch of 18, 19-year-old kids, it was a fucking adventure, man, and it was a blast, whether there was a show or not. And I fucking bet you there's not very many bands that have the balls or the initiative to do that these days.
It wasn't fun, though, when we played Blondies in Detroit, and 4 people showed up, paid $1 each, and they all left after the first song.
glorified practices, those are called, I
But
believe.
we actually played the whole set.
Yeah, and then we played...
There was just a sound man and the bartender, like, you don't have to play, there's nobody else here. We're like, we can use it practice.
yeah.
Didn't the sound man gave us like $5 out of his 20 he made that night.
Yeah, so we felt bad. And we siphoned gas.
Well, there's a really great part in the book where you meet with Hollywood Records, like in the mid '90s. For those of you who don't remember this or weren't around for it, a million punk bands got courted by major labels in the post Nirvana, but really like post Green Day boom, when like pop punk and punk were like the big thing, and so many bands signed to major labels, and there was a huge uproar about selling out and a witch hunt, really, in a lot of ways. And everybody, almost everybody took those meetings except somebody like Fugazi or whatever. But like, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that, because when you met with them, they kept pitching you on all these things that they were going to do for you, but
they ended up not being able to do anything. I mean, I just said, you're just telling us stuff that we want to hear because we already have all this. And then they started getting kind of mean, and they go, well, because we were on Epitaph at the time. They said, if you want to be second fiddle to Offspring and Rancid your whole career, and I was like, oh, I see what you're doing here. Try to make me feel bad. Like, we're all making money, right? We're all making a great living, and then because we were talking about it for a few months,
I remember that.
And after that meeting, we're like, we have to stay independent because we're going to lose, and so.
Yeah, I mean, we had so much to lose and not a whole lot to gain, meaning that we had built our fan base on just working and just showing up to the same city year after year after year, 10 people to 20 people to 40 people, at the shows. That if we did go to a major, Mike doesn't sing well enough.
Nope.
We're not good enough musicians. We're not cute enough. We're not fucking Blink or Green Day, The thing is we would lose everything that we fucking earned that we had built and probably not get anywhere.
Right. We're actually better than all those bands, but I mean, totally. But we don't have hit songs like that, you know. In fact, most of our songs don't even have choruses, if you hadn't noticed.
Yeah, that's like you say in the book, Smelly. Like your most popular song doesn't have a chorus.
Yeah, Linoleum or Bob
Yeah.
listen to choruses.
Yeah.
And no bands really
But
do that.
what they were promising you guys was distribution. And you were like, we're already in stores. Better press.
And we weren't doing press at the time.
Music videos, which you weren't doing.
Yeah, we stopped doing.
And basically, it would boil down to bigger advances for albums, right? I mean,
Yeah, and Epitaph, they were giving us $1 million
Yeah, that's
advance
plenty.
per album anyway, so.
We were set. We had everything we needed. We were happy.
I think a lot of bands had ego though, just with
That's right.
you know, we're on a major label. They would have signed, and that would have been the death of the band, you know.
and that was
You
the
have
case.
to realize where happiness is, and wait, we're all happy, so why fuck with that?
And you mentioned in the book, Mike, like for every Green Day or Offspring, there are bands like
Seaweed.
Jawbreaker,
Seaweed.
Seaweed, exactly. Like when you're talking about Hollywood Records, that's Seaweed right
It's against
there.
me.
But like tons of bands that, like in the case of Jawbreaker, like you know their fans revolted when they went to a major label and booed them at their shows, and you know it was a much. I feel like it's not as big of a deal now, but then it was a huge deal.
Shit, just us getting a tour bus. Some fan wrote on the bus, "Nice bus, assholes." When we first got our tour bus, I was like, "Oh,
Fucking corporate assholes.
Look like nice bug assholes. That's it.
that's what Timmy said."
It looked
bug.
like bug.
It was bus.
But you know what's interesting is that like you know so that kind of thing you guys had never really been part of like the sort of music industry machinations of like what's happening. Like you know you guys predate South by Southwest, but it was blowing like South by Southwest was becoming a much bigger cultural force right around the time you guys were really taking off. But so when you come to something like this that's so like biz heavy, like do you still have those sort of like reactions of being like, oh, like this is just too much?
No, I mean, punk rock used to be counterculture, and it used to be, have balls and angst, and it doesn't anymore, and it's just blended into the culture, you know. But when I see like the suit and tie guys walking around and the fucking music douchebags, sorry if there's any douchebags out there, you know, it kind of rubs me the wrong way because I still want the punk rock to be counterculture and to be mine, you know, and not I want it to be my special thing and not everybody's deal. You know, when we were kids, we would go to shows. If you didn't have the punk rock look or whatever, you get the fuck beat out of you. You know, you get hair chopped off, all that kind of stuff. And that anger's not there anymore. And that's one thing that I do miss.
Yeah, but you don't miss our friends being stabbed and shit like that either.
That was all part of it. It really was.
It's all part of the experience.
It really was. Yeah, I do miss that.
But do you really think punk? I don't know that punk doesn't have balls anymore. I think those bands are still out there. It's
I
just,
agree.
They're just like
If you go to a warehouse show in Oakland, you're gonna see.
You're right.
You're gonna see
And you
the
know
same
what?
fucking bands.
My finger's off the pulse, too. You know,
Right.
I'm no longer an 18-year-old kid that had just found this thing.
yeah.
You know, I'm 49, and I've been in this band for 34 years.
I think that's different now too. Is we were all going to Hollywood when we were 14 and 15, and it was so dangerous back then. And you know, I have an 11-year-old and a 16-year-old, and I can't even imagine the 16-year-old going out by herself. Fuck
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and there's a real sense of menace in the LA scene then that was foreign to me. Like you know, there were skins who would kick your ass, and like you were saying, if you didn't have the look.
You know, my friend got stabbed in the lung at a Dickie show because he asked us where we were from. We said Hollywood. We were from Beverly Hills, but we said Hollywood. And 5 minutes later, he was stabbed in the lung, and you know he almost died. Because that, you know, it's like you don't really see that happening anymore. I mean, you don't. It's crazy. That was normal.
Yeah,
right?
that was normal. I mean, that wasn't a one-time deal. I mean, the shows
Someone got stabbed
all the time,
everywhere.
Like there would be riots and there would be fights left and right and stabbings and bottles and shootings every now and again too. You know, the clubs were in dangerous neighborhoods. You know, there wasn't security with a nice yellow shirt on that said security. You know, it was so much different and angry and explosive. And to me, that's what got my attention, is because that's kind of the way my household was. You know, and it really made me feel a part of something when I never did feel a part of anything. and it's changed, and I know things evolve, and we as a band are part of that change, you know.
But Hefe, I'm interested for you because this was not your scene. Like when you came into NOFX, this
Definitely not my scene at
He's a
all.
new guy.
I was a new guy.
Still is. 25 years. Nothing.
I moved to Hollywood with my band at the time, Crystal Sphere. The singer got signed a multi-million-dollar deal with Virgin Records. And I was lucky enough to audition to be in his solo band and tour. And we did big, huge tours like Keith Richards and Lenny Kravitz and just big bands. I was getting wined and dined and going through the whole major label thing. So when I joined NOFX because I was only a hired musician for a Mark Crüe project. NOFX I started touring with. I knew the drummer from partying with all the Dogpatch winos in the Hollywood scene. And
that was a loosely affiliated gang of people who got fucked up that
yeah,
Smelly hung out with.
right.
All dead now.
Yeah, so I started touring NOFX, and then they offered me a full, quarter to be partners with them. So I took it, and here I am.
What would you say? Like
He didn't know about punk rock.
Yeah, exactly. 'cause
They,
you
they
would
had
say
to
like
teach me about punk rock, so they
I made
Smelly.
you a mixtape, didn't I?
You made me a mixtape. Smelly came to my house high on heroin and showed me Ribbed and Nodded Out as he was trying to tell me which songs to learn. And I mean, I was a trained musician. I studied music in college. I played music my whole life in classes, marching band, jazz band, and music theory and all that crap. So when he brought me the punk rock stuff, I was like, what the fuck is this shit? It was sloppy and horrible, and I'm just like, I can't even make sense of it.
it's all
So
out of tune. Like
it
my
was-
face would never stay
in
in tune.
They really had to teach me how to play punk rock. And I was a trained musician. I did blues, jazz, and everything. This was its own unit, and it was way, way harder. The strumming and how fast you're going, and just everything was a different ball game. There were no rules.
We had to teach him how to not wear cologne.
I used to wear cologne and butt huggers, BVDs. Hello, I'm Blake Shelton. I like these, And they made fun of me a lot on tour, and so did the other people that owned the houses that we stayed at. I would put on cologne and wear my butt huggers. So I finally left the cologne at somebody's house. There's a picture in the book where I got a bandana on and a Pendleton, and I'm doing like a cholo stance. That was the house I left my cologne at. I remember it when I saw the photo. I stopped wearing butt huggers. I took a girl home to get laid one night and dropped my pants, and she saw my butt huggers and started laughing at me. I didn't get laid that night.
You sure she wasn't laughing at something else down there?
I still had my butt huggers on. I had a little bacon strip in the back. It could have been that when I turned around, but that was the last night. The next day, I went out and bought boxers, and I stopped wearing butt huggers, and I started getting laid.
And I started wearing panties.
Yeah, now Mike's wearing girls' panties.
Well, girls' panties. Yeah.
Well, there's man panties.
Are there?
But yeah, it's so there was I forget which record it is like in the list of credits, and it's like Hefe, guitar, trumpet, talent or something like that. Because you were the only one who was like a trained musician, and you showed on when you guys went in to record I guess it was White Trash, and you were like just being very meticulous with like every syllable of the vocals.
Actually, the first recording was for me with the band was the 7-inch. What was it, Stranded? What's the name of that one? Kill All the White Man?
It's a
Longest Line.
12 inch.
Longest Line. That was the first one, and I had a lot of vocal training too in college. I showed them how to intonate their guitars and put the shit in tune. The hardest part was getting Mike to sing into.
Did anyone ever sing in a band? Right. I had to sing this one song, The Longest Line. It was 12 hours
12
to
hours.
sing that song.
Brutal. You're sharp. You're flat.
12
You're sharp. You're
hours
flat.
to sing one song.
But oh man, he was at my throat. It was like, you motherfucker, fuck you. We were like, it was gnarly. And then when
It was
was
8
done,
hours the first day. Then we got a mix, listened to it, and
then Mike was like, thank
great.
you so
And
much.
they're like, no, we have to fix this. It's another 4 hours.
Yeah.
But you have to go in that high register in that song too at the very end.
That's not the hard part. It's
There was no
low.
pitch correction. There was no Pro Tools. There was no computers. So that was all splicing different tracks, and you're sharp, you're flat, do it again, do it again. But if you go back and listen to The Longest Line of the song, it sounds pretty good. Mike sounds like he could sing.
It's all an elaborate ruse. I think, with a lot of the stuff that comes out of the book, it seems like you've all gotten to the point where you're pretty comfortable in what you're doing and where you are. Like the band, like a lot of the sort of loose ends, such as they are kind of tied up at the end when you're like talking about your dad, or you guys are talking about being, all being like family men at this age. Does the stuff that comes up with substances, both you and with you, because there's a whole ongoing toward the end of the book where they're discussing like Mike's consumption of things that doesn't feel as resolved as the other stuff does.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, I had to put up with him being a junkie for 6 years. You've had to put up with me for how long?
34 years?
No. I didn't try drugs until I was 32.
32, so what is that, 15?
17 years.
17 years of drug abuse?
Yeah.
That'll be the next 7-inch.
17 years of drug. But is it like, does it like the book? It feels like you're kind of at a détente at the end, where you're like, okay, we're functional, but it still seems like it's tentative.
Yeah. Well, we're a super functional band. I mean, we've had so few fights, 2 or 3 maybe, all these years. These guys are super cool dudes. We get along really great, which is really rare in bands.
Smelly, how about for you though? Like, having someone who's in recovery and being like, it comes up in the book that you've like, it's sometimes difficult.
Yeah, it is tough. It's tough on a couple levels. One, I take pride in shows, and when the shows are fucked up because Mike can't sing because he's been up all night or isn't playing that well because he's too drunk, it hurts. Because I really take pride and have a good time playing. And then on a recovery side of things, on a personal side of things, he may not see it, but I've seen what it's doing to him. He's much more short-fused and irrational at times and erratic with his behavior, when 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago it wasn't like that. So I see that.
It's totally fucking true. Dude.
Yeah, but then on the recovery side, my side, it's that I have to keep a distance from all that, even though I have to sit in the same bus with it. So it's really weird. There's this push and pull, the devil on one shoulder and the angel on the other, of how I feel and what I want to do for myself, but where I need to be. So there's times when I just find myself isolating in the back lounge because I don't want to go up in the front lounge and be with 5 people that I don't know that are all doing blow, and they're drunk, and they're going to talk my ear off about the same shit that the 5 people the night before said.
It's that interesting, though. You can say it that many nights in a row.
Oh, Jesus Christ. So it's
I'm
tough.
totally going through demons right now, too.
It's really tough on me sometimes. No, it's really tough on me a lot of times. But I love playing. I love hanging out with these guys. But I honestly think we'd be a lot better off without that influence.
Totally.
How much perspective comes with this book, though? Because the book is dedicated, when you open it, to the people who died over the course of telling all these stories. And it's almost 40 people long when you include the grandparents. There's like a kid who they met at a show in Minneapolis who was murdered that night. But then there's also people, some people you don't know. You didn't even know that kid's name, but then someone like Tony Sly, who was a very good friend of yours. Like, doesn't that give you some sort of perspective on like what is happening, what could happen?
Yeah, I'm dealing with it right now.
Everybody who's fucked up on drugs doesn't realize that they're not invincible. They don't.
I do.
Well, you do now because Tony died. Yeah. All the times before, you're like, oh, no, I'm cool, man. If I fucking just take a Valium, I'll go to sleep and this and that. You mix shit, your body's a fucking machine, and one of these days, the machine breaks. And
this is Tony Sly, who's the singer of No Use for a Name, who died.
No one's immune to it. So I've actually had this conversation with my wife. If Mike croaks, I don't know what we're going to do. It's actually been a conversation. So it's a reality.
It's been a conversation with my wife, too.
And Mike, what we're here to tell you is we all love you.
Wait, is this an intervention?
Every person here has brought a letter they would like to read. What is interesting about this book too is that like it isn't all tied up at the end where it's like, and everything's perfect. and then you ride off into the sunset. There, the story is still unfolding. Yeah.
Yeah, we're like that Energizer battery that just won't die. Just keep going.
Do you? How has it changed? Like, do you still experience the same sort of pleasures from music that you did when you were younger? Now, like, can you still feel that connection even though you've been doing it for so long?
I still feel it.
The past 10 years, I've been having a way better time. I mean, not just doing drugs, but playing shows. We've had such great shows over the past 10 years, way better than ever.
Playing music for me is different than listening to music. I don't really listen to music at home. I mean, I put stuff on in the background and shit, but I've been doing this for so fucking long that when I'm in noisy clubs, when I go home, I just want to kind of unwind and decompress from that, But on the flip side of that, I really love playing music live. I really fucking do.
I would trade in music for BDSM if I had to make a choice, because that's way more fun.
Says you.
Well, we have a few minutes. Do you guys want to take a few questions?
Sure.
Yeah.
Anybody? There's a mic back there. If anyone would like to, otherwise we can just
All right.
keep on talking.
It's hidden.
Oh, you can just
Oh,
do it
right
from
there's
there.
fine.
It's fine.
Just say it loud.
How do you guys write your lyrics? Is it like all real stories, or is it just concept based, or like The Decline? That's my favorite. Is that like a big long story, or is that?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just how I feel about the world.
Question was about how they write the lyrics, by the way.
Yeah, I write the lyrics. Our new album is our most personal lyrics. It's like I peeled my skin off on a lot of it. Our new album is really dark and funny.
Yeah.
But a lot of very surprising lyrics on our album.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, thanks for the honesty too. It's really it's great for people to hear such honest stories.
You're from Australia?
Yeah, bro. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
From West Australia.
Cool, thank
All
you.
right.
I've seen you guys in Perth. It's so sick.
Oh, Perth.
Yeah, we'll never be going back to Perth.
The very first interview I did with you was for my zine when I was 19, and it was all about writing lyrics. And I mailed you questions, and you like wrote the answers out and mailed it back to me. And I remember I was like, was there anything that tends to inspire you? And you wrote, I always like to write after sex. And I was like, Fat Mike, ladies and gentlemen.
After a good beating. Yeah. It's the only time my mind is clear.
Oh, here, this guy's gonna bring you a mic.
Why is everyone up here foreign?
So these days it's so important to have numbers to get anywhere. In the early days, did you feel much pressure to get numbers at your gigs or
Numbers?
albums
What do you
sold?
mean, numbers?
As in like people at gigs, albums sold, likes on Facebook, all that type of stuff.
There was no Facebook when we were.
Well, but
Yeah.
we never were concerned with that because it doesn't matter if you're not on a major.
Yeah.
If you're not trying to get radio played, numbers don't matter.
Yeah, so there was never ever any pressures on
Never.
that to
Because
get that.
we were just having fun playing music. So if we were in, frickin', I don't know, wherever, Hoboken, and 17 people showed up, we were stoked because we were playing music. There was no pressure. We didn't set any kind of goal, because when you set a goal, if you don't meet that goal, you feel like you've failed. So we just played to play, and we were just traveling to have fun.
And make money.
Eventually.
Not
And is
right
that
away.
the type of advice you'd give to new bands, new punk bands and stuff like that, especially on?
Well, I talk to a lot of bands, and I tell them if you're not just into this for the music, or you're an alcoholic, then don't do it because there's no real. It's so hard to win these days.
So the bands.
You just gotta have a good time.
So that's what you say is the bands on Fat Records.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I tell them
that's
if you
good.
want to hit
That's the
record,
way.
don't come here.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't break records. We don't break bands. We fix them.
Yep.
Well,
That's good.
that's interesting too, because the approach to Fat has shifted over the years. Like from the 90s when you had like Propaganda and Face to Face and all these like higher selling records. Now like you guys have shifted to like a smaller level of bands and like not spending as much, but not like having to.
Well, there's really
recoup
no
as much.
choice. A band like Teenage Bottle Rocket, they'll draw 500 people a night everywhere, but they only sell 10,000 records worldwide. So you can't sell a lot of records. So I'm not going to tell a band, sign to my label, you'll get popular. It's all going to happen. If you want to have a good time, it's a good label to be on.
Any other questions? Oh,
You guys being from earlier on and going through that shift into the digital age, I was wondering on your thoughts of like when everything kind of shifted from physical to digital, how you guys kind of dealt with that.
Not pay attention to it.
That's the record label question.
And we just sell less and less records. We make less and less money, but our shows have always stayed the same.
That was kind of weird to see sold out shows all across the United States, actually all over the world, and your record sales going down and down and down and down, but your audience is still there at the live show. So it was like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, a lot of places we're still getting bigger, and our record sales are.
Yeah, nobody's buying music anymore. Downloading for free or streaming and
after your 14th, 15th record, people aren't that interested in buying your new records. But our new record is different.
no, it's funny. Like the top of the back cover of this says the story of how not to be a successful punk band, as told by one of punk's most successful bands, which I think like encapsulates that. Like, we never paid attention to that shit, and now like, that most people will tell you that you need to pay attention.
Yeah, what you just said is how do the numbers affect you? Yeah. You can't think about anything like that. You just got to think about the art.
Yeah,
I mean, I've purposely never written a radio song. Not purposely, but I never thought, this might be popular. Because once you think that, it changes how you would write it. Once you think we're never going to get popular on the radio, then you just write songs. And that's why I think we've been successful. But on this record, we actually did write a song that is radio friendly for the first time.
Melvin, were you going to say something?
No.
Okay. Just checking in.
Thanks.
More of a comment than a question. Just wanted to share, like, in the late 90s, what originally drew me to you guys was, like, the honesty and the self-effacing nature of your music. And to see that validated now, I mean, this is the first time I've ever, like, seen you guys speak. And, like, bravery, talking about addiction and stuff. I really appreciate it, and it validates, the years that I spent listening to you guys. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for saying that.
Thank you.
Hey, I kind of want to back off what this guy just said because I've been listening to you guys for about 15, 16 years. And I actually wanted to ask you a question about a show. I remember the first show I saw of you guys, probably 97 in Houston for Lollapalooza. And you guys had a bunch of dollar bills come.
Houston Warped Tour.
Warped Tour.
Warped Tour. We threw the money back to the audience because the show was horrible.
What was the story behind that? I always wondered who had that idea and what was the dollar bills.
It was so hot at this Houston Warped Tour that they moved it into a huge warehouse where it was like a cattle warehouse. And it sounded so bad that I was watching Bad Religion, my favorite band, and I couldn't hear what song they were playing. It just sounded so horrible. So we were not going to play. And then we decided, let's just give back our guarantee, or $10,000 to the crowd, as like in protest to don't make us play such a shitty sounding place. So we threw $10,000 into the crowd.
Yeah, we strategically put people in the crowd with money so that it wasn't all, people wouldn't run all to the front. We're like, we're going to cause a panic.
Yeah, it would have been.
So all of a sudden, money was just kind of flying everywhere. It was a pretty cool thing to see, as well as be a part of.
Okay, we got time for one last quick one.
I love your song Linoleum. It's one of my favorite songs. And to me, I kind of interpret it as a song about I always end up back here, like on the floor. Was that song associated with any particular drug or any particular night or time period?
It was about the band Hefe used to be in, the singer Mark Crüe. He was just kind of a kitchen floor sleeper. And I was writing from his perspective. My wife actually, when we first started going out, she would end up sleeping on the kitchen floor, too. I don't know. There's something odd about sleeping on the kitchen floor, which I've done before, but you should try it sometime. It's terrible.
Did he also have a metal detector that he liked to go on the beach with?
No.
Right.
Damn it. Well, I think that does it, you guys. Thanks so much for coming. Thank you, NOFX, everybody. NOFX, the Hepatitis, Bathtub, and Other Stories. Out next month. Check it out. It's great.
Tell your friends.